I never thought I'd be the guy whose car gets filled with cement by his neighbor. But I also never thought I'd meet Deborah Wilson, the president of our homeowners association and the undisputed Queen Karen of Sycamore Hills. It all started 3 months ago when I bought what I believed was my dream home. It was a beautiful 2-story colonial in a quiet suburb. The real estate agent casually mentioned the HOA, but said they were reasonable. Looking back, that should have been a massive red flag. Within 48 hours of moving in, I got my first taste of Deborah's reign. A violation notice was taped to my front door. Apparently, my fence was painted eggshell white instead of the required pearl white. I honestly couldn't tell the difference. The notice gave me 72 hours to repaint it or face a $100 fine. It was signed by Deborah herself, with a phone number listed. Trying to be a good neighbor, I called her. I explained I was new and just wasn't aware of the specific paint rules. Her voice on the other end was as cold as ice. "Ignorance isn't an excuse, Mr. Mitchell. The bylaws were in your closing documents. I suggest you read them." And then she just hung up on me. Total Karen move. So, I bit the bullet and repainted the fence. The paint was cheaper than the fine, and I just wanted to keep the peace. But that was just the beginning. The next few weeks were a nightmare of citations. My grass was half an inch too tall. My garden hose was visible from the street. I put my trash can out 5 hours too early. Each notice came with a steeper fine. Every time I tried to talk to Deborah, I was shut down with her condescending tone and rigid rules that, weirdly, only seemed to apply to me. My neighbor across the street had a basketball hoop in his driveway, which was a clear violation, but nothing was ever said to him. One evening, I was coming home from work and saw her, Deborah, in her signature pastel tracksuit, clipboard in hand, power walking straight toward my house. I decided to face her head on, hoping for a civil conversation. "Good evening, Deborah," I said, forcing a smile. "Something I can help you with?" Her eyes narrowed to slits. "Your car is in violation of Section 12. She snapped, tapping her clipboard. "No vehicles can be parked in driveways for more than 30 minutes unless they're in pristine condition. Yours has mud on the wheel wells." I looked at my car. It had rained a little on my commute home, so there was a bit of dried mud. "I just got home from work," I told her calmly. "I wash it this weekend." "This doesn't seem like something worth a fine." Her face turned bright red. "I decide what's a violation, Mr. Mitchell, and you seem to have a problem with authority." And that's when I made the mistake that sealed my fate. I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, just a little chuckle at how completely absurd the whole thing was. To Deborah, it was the ultimate sign of disrespect. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped her clipboard. "You won't be laughing when you get your next fine," she hissed, and then stormed off. The next morning, I had a huge client meeting. I walked outside, ready to go, and just froze. My car was gone. Well, not gone, but hidden under a big blue tarp. I lifted a corner, and my stomach dropped. My car, the interior, the dashboard, the seats, the steering wheel was completely filled with hardened, quick-drying cement. I just stood there in total shock. After a minute, I managed to pull out my phone and dial 911. While I was waiting for the police, I looked around, trying to make sense of it all. That's when I noticed it, a small security camera on my neighbor John's garage, pointing directly at my driveway. He'd installed it after some packages were stolen a few months back. When the police arrived, I told them everything: the endless citations, the confrontation with Deborah, and now this. The officers were just as stunned as I was. One of them said he'd seen some crazy HOA disputes, but never, ever anything like this. As I pointed out the security camera to the officer, I felt a tiny glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could finally prove what this woman was capable of. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see what happened next in this unbelievable story. The officers took my statement and then went to speak with John about his security footage. About 2 hours later, I was sitting at the police station, watching that same video with 2 officers. The footage was crystal clear. It showed Deborah arriving at my house at 3 in the morning with a man in work clothes. They used a Slim Jim to unlock my car, and then just started pouring bucket after bucket of cement through the open windows. The evidence was undeniable. One of the officers turned to me. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. I didn't even have to think about it. "Yes," I said. Destruction of property, breaking and entering, vandalism. The list of charges was long. One officer made a quick phone call, and a few minutes later, he told me they were on their way to Deborah's house with an arrest warrant. I'll never forget the scene. Deborah, being led out of her perfectly manicured ranch-style home in handcuffs, still wearing her bathrobe and slippers. Her face was twisted with pure rage when she saw me standing across the street. "This is all your fault," she screamed, her voice echoing down the quiet street. "You never respected the rules. You never showed proper respect." The officers guided her into the back of the police car as curious neighbors started coming out of their houses to see what all the commotion was about. I didn't feel any joy or satisfaction watching it happen. All I felt was this deep sense of disbelief that a little mud on my car's wheel wells could lead to this. The next few weeks were a total blur of police statements, insurance claims, and meetings with prosecutors. It turns out, Deborah had a history of getting more and more aggressive with her HOA enforcement over the years, but no one had ever really stood up to her. People either just did what she said or they moved. I was the first person to openly defy her, and it seems like that's what set her off. Because the whole thing was so premeditated and the damage was so severe, the district attorney decided to go for felony charges. My car was a complete write-off, valued at $22,000. The cement had ruined the entire interior and had even gotten into the engine. In a surprising twist, the man who helped Deborah came forward. He was a contractor who'd worked on her kitchen, and he agreed to testify against her for a lighter sentence. He said she'd threatened him, saying she'd report fake building code violations if he didn't help her. 3 months later, I was in a courtroom, watching Deborah get sentenced. She'd been found guilty on all counts. The judge's voice was firm as it filled the quiet room. "Ms. Wilson, your position as HOA president was one of trust and responsibility. Instead, you abused that position to carry out a personal vendetta. This court sentences you to 6 months in county jail, 2 years of probation, and full restitution to Mr. Mitchell in the amount of $22,000 for the destruction of his vehicle. Furthermore, you are permanently barred from serving on any HOA board." That's when Deborah's composure finally broke. Tears started streaming down her face. "Your Honor, I've devoted my life to maintaining property values in our community. I can't go to jail. I have a reputation. The judge cut her off coldly. "You should have thought of that before filling someone's car with cement. Bailiff, please take the defendant into custody," as they led her away. Sobbing and protesting, our eyes met for just a second, and in that moment, I saw something I didn't expect: confusion. Even then, facing the real consequences of her actions, she just couldn't understand how her obsession with perfection had brought her to this point. The gavel banged down, and just like that, Deborah Wilson, the HOA Karen of Sycamore Hills, was gone. Our neighborhood would never be quite the same, but maybe that was a good thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.